But think about this also in terms of where you work, and where you may go to school, if you go to school. So these places that you spend most of your life, we tend to be very habitual people, and it's work, and it's home, or school, and home, work, and home, and school, and home, and the grocery store. So these places that we are outside of the home, typically when we're out there, either work or school, we got there by driving, right? So if we're away from home, chances are we've got our car. Okay, so that car is a resource that we can put things in or on or under or somewhere, and it becomes a supply station, as it were. And the nice thing about a vehicle is you can add 200 or 300 pounds even of equipment to a vehicle, and really, does it affect the vehicle or the performance or the gas mileage much at all? No, it doesn't. Now, it would ruin you to try to carry that, right? But it's nothing to a vehicle. So think about the particular vehicle that you have. Are there like little compartments here and there that you could just store stuff? That's just empty space right now. So one of the most common areas is under where your spare tire is. Often there's a lot of space around that spare tire or in the center. You can put all kinds of stuff. I've got a Toyota truck, and so I've got several ammo cans and supplies, and then I have written on the can what I have in there. So again, I'm always reminded as to what kind of supplies I have, so I don't wish I had something and forget that I know I actually do have that thing to use. So when it comes to vehicles, something to think about is you're not just packing for yourself, but you're also packing for that vehicle, right? So have some extra oil. Maybe, depending on your vehicle, maybe some extra oil if it's an older vehicle, maybe a little bit of steering fluid or brake fluid or something. Coolant. As you get to know your vehicle, you kind of get to know what your vehicle needs. If it's got a small leak or if something's going on and you're using coolant for some reason. Like our van is just starting to use a little bit of coolant. So it's like, okay, so that has now become part of the van until I can figure it out and figure out where that coolant is going to. I'll carry a gallon of coolant with me just to make sure. It does fine. But you see my thought process that I'm trying to accommodate is I don't want to be out somewhere dependent on my vehicle and then have my vehicle start breaking down. Jumper cable. It's not only good for you, but it's good for somebody else that might need help, right? An alternative to jumping cables is having these little boosters that are essentially a battery pack that you can boost jump. Instead of using somebody else's vehicle to jump from, you can use this little booster, a battery pack, to start your vehicle or somebody else's vehicle. And the nice thing about those is when they're not in use, you can plug them into your cigarette lighter and be topping off the charge in those so that it's always got good charge. And those come anywhere from very small, simple, 1 or 2 uses, to a little bit bigger, and they've got USB ports so you can charge a phone and do a lot more with. So having one of those. Years ago, there's a story with this. Oh yeah, that was here too, wasn't it? So you guys know the roads here. Okay, so where are we? We're in Libya. So if we were to look at Montana, there's 2, and some of you might know where this is. There's 2 highway systems, and they kind of go this direction on the western part of Montana. What are are those two highway systems? They kind of go down like this. Well, coming from Western Washington, we're coming this way, and it's like we're going to hit this highway, but we had to go like way down here and around, and then back up on this one, and we were going up near the border somewhere. And so I'm studying the map, and it's like, oh, look, there's a little road that connects them. Let's go on that little road. And you all know where anybody know what I'm talking about? And it's like 60 miles of gravel and logging road. And it's like, oh look, there's a road. We can cut off a lot of time. Oh, yeah. And so we're just lifting up this road, and going around one of the corners, it's like the car drifts a little bit more than normal. So it's like something's not right. So we pull over. We have 2 flat tires. Well, one is okay, right? Because you'll usually have one spare. But what do you do with 2 flat tires? And it's like, okay. And we have like my wife's typical 600 pounds of camper gear in the back, so we had to like pull all this stuff out. And, you know, we had 2 boys at the time, so we changed one tire, but we're still dead in the water. And this was kind of late afternoon, and a big truckload of loggers getting off work came by and stopped. Hey, you know, what's going on? What do you need? Well, we got a flat tire. Well, 2 flat tires, but we fixed the one, and they're like, oh, well, sorry, can't help you. And it's like, and several other vehicles went by, and they all stopped, asked, and it's like, oh, sorry, can't help you. It's like, well, fine. But then, you know, we sat down, and it's like, we started praying, Lord, help us. We're stuck. We need to go somewhere, get somewhere by the end of the day. And right after that, a car came the other way. Husband and wife, they stopped. Oh, what's going on? Well, this is what's going on. They're like, oh, I think we can help you. We have one of these. It's plug it in the cigarette lighter air pump. And so they're like, oh, can we borrow it? And they're like, oh, sure, yeah, we got time. So they loaned us one of these things, and you know what? We actually aired up the front tire, and it held. And we're like, can we buy this thing from you? And then the guy's like, well, I don't know. Let me go ask my wife. So he goes back to his vehicle, talks to his wife for a while. He comes back and he says, no, she doesn't want to sell it. Because it's our anniversary and we've got 2 of them and you can just have it.
Aww.
And it's this one right here. We had to stop one other time before we got off that gravel road and air up the tire again. But we pulled into Les Schwab up by wherever it was. Yeah, somewhere up there. Just like 15 minutes before Les Schwab closed. We were able to get the tires all fixed up. And it's like, okay, so this stays with us. This is a good thing to have. And matter of fact, the other thing that goes along with that is, and this looks kind of scrappy because I've used it a bunch, but it's a tire repair kit. And I don't know if anybody has seen this. So it's 2 pieces of plastic, and between the plastic is this kind of heavy, it's almost like yarn, but it's got a urethane type rubber that's really super sticky. And then it comes in a pack with 2 tools. This one is kind of like a file, and this one's kind of like a needle. You see that little hole there? These, in a pinch, work really well. So if you get a hole in your tire, you know, a nail stuck in the tire, and you all know what happens when you pull the nail out, right? It's flat. So pull the nail out, and then you use this file one, stick it in the hole, and you think, why am I making it worse? But you're cleaning out that hole, poke this in and out several times, and then pull off this sticky piece of yarn and thread it through here and shove it down in there. And when you pull this out, that sticky thing will stay in the tire. and it's actually so gooey that it'll actually fill that hole up. And it's a stopgap thing. You don't want to just like pretend the tire has no problems from now on forever. You do want to get back and do a proper repair, but it will get you by. So having this little repair kit is also something that I keep in this case. So, again, if it's a little punctured that one or two of these will fill, it's a great way to patch a tire if you need it. Doesn't cost much, and you can get packages of replacement, whatever they call these. Thread. And there's a package, just like a whole bundle of them that you can get separate from the actual kit. I think the original kit came with probably about 6 of these threads. I've got one left, so I should get more. But really a handy tool to have. And this is another thing that you might notice throughout the content of the packs. I'm a firm believer in redundancy. So I've got multiple ways of doing one thing. So this will deal with tires and tire issues. This will deal with tire issues. Maybe a couple ways to jump a vehicle. I don't have the case that has the jumper cables in it, but I do have a tow strap, and that's really handy to have as well. And I'm just a cheap country boy. I don't buy these things. I just pick up 2-inch tow straps that I see, or straps that I see along the road, and then just at the hardware store buy the hooks and put them together. So cheap. I don't want you to think that I've got some exotic gear that you have to go to special places to find. It's like, no, just find stuff. And, nothing expensive, nothing exotic, just stuff that you can collect and get pretty much anywhere. Any questions? So jumpers, some way to jump apart of these jumps, some way of dealing with tire issues, and maybe some way of dealing with them off the road, so a tow strap. Straps are way, way better than chains. Chains are pretty lousy. Or, you're going to break something with a chain. Yeah.
One thing I didn't hear you mention anything about, and that's light. That's the one thing that I've run into trouble more than once, not having enough light when you need it after dark.
So, flashlights, headlights. The light that I have, actually, this is another thing that I carry with me, a little ham radio. I don't broadcast on it, but I've got a list of my local counties, all the frequencies, emergency response frequencies in my county. So fire, the one frequency it's tuned to right now is the call-out dispatch center, which is really handy because everything comes and goes from the county's dispatch center, right? So the gal at the dispatch is talking to the state people, the county people, and the city people. And if you listen enough, or if you talk to somebody in law enforcement, they can kind of give you some clues as to what, for instance, in our county, 1 David 7. Well, what's 1 David 7? Well, 1 is the sheriff, David is day crew, as opposed to Nora, which is night crew. And then 7 is the part of the county that they've got their different kind of patrol areas broken up into. So 7 is the north part of our county. So if you kind of get to know the code, you start knowing what's going on around the county. And, if there's crazy things happening. I remember one time I was out doing some work, and this crazy windstorm came through, and it had a lot of rain. And there were landslides. There were probably half a dozen or more landslides around the county, trees coming down, and I was listening to the whole thing. So I knew where not to go getting back home, where to get around the issues. So that's kind of handy. And this actually has a flashlight on it as well. So I've got a flashlight there. I've got a headlamp in my car, and then a real nice flashlight. The flashlight that I have, I really like because it opens up and it can charge. So if I run out of battery, I'm not stuck. I can just plug it into the car charger that I have for my cell phone. Yeah.
What's the distance on that, or what distance should you have before you get that?
What kind?
Distance, what distance?
So on ham depends on a number of things. Line of sight helps. So getting way down in the canyon and pick up a little bit less, although county and state does broadcast a fair bit of energy because they need to get their signals out to wherever it is it needs to go. And they've got repeaters. So, typically you can pick up fairly well around a particular county if you're on the county's station. But I've got a list. I should have it with me. I should laminate the whole list for my particular area and just keep it taped to the back of this, at least in my vehicle.
I don't know what they have in Lincoln County, but in Sanders County, we are very limited
Yeah.
because of canyons. That's our biggest downfall right now, is trying to have enough repeater capability to get into these canyons.
And the nice thing is law enforcement, they need to get the signals. So, so that's kind of a little handy too. It kind of keeps you attached to the outside world of what's going on around you. If there is disaster.
Is that CD or is that ham?
It's ham. And these are cheap. It's a Baofeng ham radio, $25, $30. It's super cheap. And as long as, if you don't have a ham license, that gives you the permission to do that broadcast. I'm just using it as a receiver and listening in on counties' frequencies, just so I know what's going on. And it's slightly entertaining too. Saturday night, what's going on about town. There's some fun things that happen, and some guy climbed a tree, and they had to get the fire truck and the ladder to get him down because he was doped up or something. I don't know. So it's another tool that's again light. It's portable. It's easy. It's chargeable, and I also have an inverter as well. So with an inverter, you can plug that into your cigarette lighter, and it turns your cigarette lighter 12 volts into 110, so you can plug in whatever it is that you need to plug in, a blender or a charger. It gives you household power. So that's really handy as well as far as a tool. So vehicle stuff, what are the basic needs of a vehicle? I want that. And then what are some things that I might need in that vehicle? And again, you can add a little bit more. Another consideration, and I think I talked about car stuff. So this would be bottom of the second page. On bottom of the second page, number 5, stuff for you, waterproof toilet paper, tarp, blah, blah, blah. The toilet paper is a really nice item that often it's easy to forget. But if you keep toilet paper in your car, keep it at the very least in a Ziploc bag, because mice will find it. And they will help themselves. And make a big nest of toilet paper in your glove box, or in your trunk, or in the car seat, or somewhere, and then it's not any good to use.
Well, it absorbs moisture too if you are in a damp area.
Yeah. And it absorbs everything that the mice delete as well. So just bag it up, and it's a lot harder for them to find. The other thing too, especially in food items, because mice always seem to find their way in the vehicles, at least where I live. So I've got a couple of cookie tins. So it's fairly large rectangular cookie tins that fit my space, and that's where I often keep my toilet paper in that and my food items. So it's closed. You know, if I need to duct tape it down so the lid stays on better, then the mice can't get to it. So that's something to think about too, because I've more than once is find that they kind of helped themselves to the toilet paper and made a big mess somewhere in the car or whatever. Yeah.
One of the things around here, I don't know if all of you know this or not, but pack rats are a big problem.
Oh, yeah.
You get into campsites,
Yeah.
put up your hood because they'll eat your wires, and that's, I never realized why they had their hoods up, and then I asked the guy, and he goes, oh, it's because pack rats will get underneath that warm hood and eat your wires.
Every once in a while we'll get pack rats as well. And they don't get into the vehicle so much as they get into the house.
Yeah.
You can just hear them thumping from rafter to rafter up in the attic. Yeah, it's not fun. Okay. Another consideration, number 6, is keep at least some of your food and water within arm's reach of the driver's seat. There's been several search and rescue situations where somebody has gone off the road and they're alive, they're okay, but they're pinned in the driver's seat. And they might be there for a day. Well, if that's the case, you want something accessible to you, right? So poke some water, food items, glove box, or under the seat or somewhere. Just explore your car and find all these little nooks and crannies that you can put stuff. And maybe some stuff under the seat, maybe some stuff behind the seat, or down in the wheel well where your spare tire is. Just explore your car and find all these little empty access areas that might as well put something in it. Load it and forget it. Well, don't forget it, but you know what I mean. So, what else?
Rob, may I ask
Yes, please.
a question about your sleeping bag?
Oh, yeah. So, I just threw this in just because there's tons of good sleeping bags on the market. This particular one I got from my dad years ago, and it's a military surplus bag. How many of you have seen these? Or I should say, how many of you have not seen these sleeping bags? This will be like the last sleeping bag you'll ever need. Bring it out here. This thing is so handy. First of all, it's in a Gore-Tex outer case, so I can just throw this out on the ground in the rain, and it keeps the rain off me. And it's actually 2 sleeping bags. The black one is thick. The green one is quite a bit thinner. So if it's summertime and the nights are only getting down to 60 degrees, we'll just pull out the green one and use that. And maybe put the black one underneath of you, on the ground. Or, if you want something a little bit more, just use the black one. Or if it's, getting cold at night, like it is last night, kind of frosted, you can use both of them. And they all button up to each other. So they're all attached to each other, and they've each got their own zipper. So time. So there's the black one, the green, where are you? The green one, and then the Gore-Tex. And then you can button that over so it keeps itself sealed.
So is that down or synthetic?
No, it's a synthetic.
Okay.
I think they go for about $250. A little bit expensive, but and as you can see, it doesn't necessarily roll up into a compact thing. But boy, it sure is handy. It's kind of nice. And being modular, as it were, you know, like I said, you can take it apart and use one part or both parts or, you know, the whole thing. And I like it. It's really nice to have. So,
Where do you find those?
Yeah.
so you can go online and look up 3-piece military sleeping bag.
Can you get them at the RV store?
I don't see why you couldn't.
Yeah.
You know, they should have something like that. Yeah.
If you have past experience, they have what they call like a stand down or something like that, where they rotate and they give away military gear
Oh,
for
okay.
ex-military people.
Nice. Yeah, if that's a opportunity that presents itself, that's handy. The other thing that I don't have with me, I just now thought of that I will often keep with me is a hammock. And it's made out of ripstop nylon, so it wads up to about this big. Actually, do I know what I have? Actually, okay, it's a little bit bigger. This one is bigger just because it's homemade, and I've got rope instead of the thin nylon straps. So this hammock, we made it, and it's. What time is it?
10:20.
25 after 10.
So, okay, so we're going from 9 to 11, right? For this first program. So we've got, what, 40 minutes?
There's a clock back there, Rob.
Let's
We got
unroll
45
this.
Rob,
Yes.
there's a clock back there in the corner.
But
It's like-
he's not gonna be able to see
Oh,
it.
I can't see it.
10:23.
So, the one thing with hammocks,
Can you hold it in?
sure, is you have no insulation under you.
Right.
So your backside does tend to get cold unless you have some, you know, extra insulation, a thin foam, closed cell foam that you could insert under it. So this one is actually 2 pieces, and then it's open, so you can sleep either on top of it or you can get inside of it. So I can do this. You see, it's got a lot of volume in there. So so you can trap some air in there. You can kind of see. You get the idea. So I mean, you can do it either way. So you can, you know, it blends into the surrounding. But for me, Western Washington, what I'm doing also is I'm running a corded line over top of it and then draping a tarp over it. Because, you know, I've got a lot of rain and stuff like that to fuss with. So, and as long as the tarp hangs down, you know, plenty past the hammock, then, you know, it's the rain is not a problem. And with a bag like that, I'm pretty good. So,
Do you put like a space blanket below you? You know,
uh,
it pushes back the heat?
you can. I'm not necessarily a big fan of space blankets just because they tend to be so crinkly and noisy. That drives me crazy at night. It's just like I don't necessarily always sleep really well. So, you know, and you move a little bit, it all crinkles. It's like, The other thing too that not many people have really played around with, hammocks are lighter than tents. I mean, it's just much easier to have this, thank you, than a tent. Although, you know, a tent's not bad either, we've got some good tents. But the other thing that people who, if you haven't camped out in a hammock, if you like to sleep flat and hammocks go like this, you can still sleep flat in the hammock by moving your body to go at an angle. And when you lay in this at an angle, you'll lay flat, like perfectly flat. Just put yourself at a diagonal on it, and it's amazing. You can almost sleep on your stomach if you're a stomach sleeper, and you don't want to be like bent backwards. There's ways of doing that in the hammock, just by how you position yourself.
Yeah, I've had some of my best sleep in the hammock.
Really?
Yeah.
So, yeah, another thing that's nice to have. So, because this is double, it does take up more space. We do have a number of single layer hammocks that do pack up into just a little thing. And then with the nylon straps, the webbing takes up a lot less space as well, so it does wrap up really small. I don't remember.
That's a nylon material?
Yes, ripstop nylon. And actually, if you're good at sewing, it's super easy to do. And if you go to, there's a website called Ripstop by the Roll. Ripstopbytheroll.com. And you can get any color imaginable, all kinds of nylon fabrics. And I think even they have plans and how-to videos on that website. And it's just a big rectangle. That's all it is, and stitched up all the way around. So it's kind of a fun thing, and it is kind of a little bit of a movement out there. You see, sometimes a lot of people are become quite a thing. So the other thing too that I'm just noticing that Kevin brought up is everything in the bottom compartment that I have extra clothes. It's all bagged. Because this is what's going to sit on the ground and collect the moisture. So everything in this bottom is in Ziploc bags, so it doesn't get wet. The other nice thing about this pack is it does have a rain fly, and so I can throw the rain fly over it. And it doesn't look so
Military?
military. Yeah, it's got more of an innocuous look to it. And, it keeps the water off to some degree. And then also, when I keep this in my vehicle, typically it's strapped behind the seat of my truck, I will keep this cover on it so people can't necessarily see what it is. Other than, it's a pack, but it's all covered up. When it's uncovered, there's things that they can see, and it's like, I don't want to see that kind of stuff. So. Keep it seatbelted in behind, and it just looks like a ball.
So when you go backpacking, you're not carrying this backpack?
No.
So what do you use?
So it depends. Like our kids are grown and out, and it's like, man, the kids leave and it takes all the fun out of life. But oftentimes the boys and I, we would pretty much take a knife and a compass, and then we would just go. And a camera. My oldest son is a camera crazy kid. So he would bring the documentation, take pictures of everything we did. But there's a fairly big mountain up behind our place that oftentimes we go up there and camp out, build shelters, and pick wild huckleberries, and just kind of hang out. Sometimes we would bring a little bit of dried food, high calorie dried food. I remember one time we went up, I think it was 4th of July weekend. From up on top of the mountain, we could see like fireworks from like 3 different towns. But that time we took a couple of packs of flour tortillas and jam. And today, if I say those 2 words in one sentence, my son will kind of go into the shakes. And it's like, no, don't say those words together. Yeah, because we kind of got sick of it. But it was good times. I mean, we have lots of memories.
Yeah, but what did you use for bedding at night and had, warm that you were able to?
So, okay, so primitive shelter. Okay, so here, this is for free. Primitive shelters are made of 3 ingredients. Number 1, you've got a skeleton. So it's a limb and branch, a stick structure, and then general forest litter debris on top of that, and then inside of it, because we live in Western Washington, and it's wet and it's moist, and there's moss growing everywhere. We take the moss that is growing on the trees and on the rocks, and we will stuff that shelter just absolutely completely full of that nice spongy, the moss is like this thick, right? And so we just pack it full, and then we get in there and pack it all down, and we go out and we get more, and then we fill it again, and then this time we get under that second batch and we poke it up in between the branches. And so basically a good shelter is a sleeping bag. So when you make a survival shelter, you're not making this stadium thing, you're making a sleeping bag. So it looks like it's about this big inside. But it's real spongy. And so that's how and actually we did that one time. That trip that we did up to northern, wherever it is, we went. It was right across the river. What is it, Flathead? I can't remember, but right across the river from Glacier. Mm-hmm. And so my kids and I, we got the bright idea. Hey, let's wade the river and go up into the park and build shelters. And in the morning, I've got these like little predator game calls. So it's like, let's go call some bears and get some good photography of kids and bears. Yeah.
This does not sound like a bright idea.
I don't know. Did we tell you about that or before or after?
After.
Can't tell Mom about this kind of stuff. So we went up there and we did same thing. A lot of moss where we were at. So we were able to green that out. And just as we were finished about sundown and crawled into our shelters, we had this horrendous thunder and lightning storm that just was shaking the mountain. But we were just like a little cozy, and it's cushy, and it's just really nice when you know how to build them. It's just like a little, yeah.
You mentioned about having just a knife and a compass. If you didn't you just had to bug out and way up in the mountains, would it be good to have some type of a map, or would it really be useful?
It depends. So, and it's also the whole concept of a compass. People think, oh, I have a compass. Well, do you know how to use a compass? How many people know how to use a compass? Well, if you know how to use it, okay, it's good. But if you don't know how to use it, it's just a book answer at that point.
So a compass is like our GPS today.
Yeah, so with the compass and a map, that's where, if you know how to use the compass and the map together, you can really shine. Otherwise, just really understanding and knowing the landscape, if you want to end up in a particular place, you really either have to know how to use a compass and a map, or be familiar with the lay of the land. Otherwise, I'm not necessarily trying to go to a particular place. I'm coming at things from more of a hunter-gatherer mentality where I want to go wherever it is that there are resources in nature that I can use that will help me. And if it's down the valley or up over the hill, over the ridge, to me it doesn't matter as long as there is that resource there that I can find. Does that make sense? So the motivation is different. If you're trying to get from point A to point B, yeah, map and a compass. Thank you for saying that. Actually, because where are you? I've got this really neat map. So called Rugged Maps. Now I don't know how far they've gone. They've been around for I think a couple of years. It's fabric coated. So you can do this. But look what kind of map it is. And it's not paper. So you're not going to ruin it if it goes in the river. So, for me, this is like my entire playground right here. So, maybe look it up, Rugged Maps, and see if they have maps for this area. But that is really handy to have, and it's got the topography, so it's just, you can see just where to go. If you want to go from point A to point B, you know what's in between there. So this is a really neat map to have. The other maps that I use quite often are the state gazetteer type maps. It's just like the whole book is the state, just page by page. Have you seen those? Usually I see them sometimes at gas stations, or it's just like, well, I don't know if it's Thompson, but it's like a whole gazetteer of the whole state.
Yeah.
And on the back cover is the state, and it's all broken up by pages. So you can just look at the page you need and flip to it, and there it is. And it has just as much detail to stick that on as well. Really a handy map to have, especially in your vehicle. But this one, it stays with my path. Where's that case? But I really like this, just because of the detail that it shows. And it's waterproof. And it is, yeah. That's a big deal, paper maps, they have a lifetime, or a lifespan. And at some point they just start falling apart and it's no good. Another thing, actually, since we're talking about this, two other things actually. Electrical tape. Really handy for a million different things because it's stretchy. You could use this for a tourniquet. It's just, other than, even car applications, binding stuff up, it's a really handy stuff to have. Multiple uses, electrical tape. I have that in vehicles in a lot of different packs. Another thing that's really handy as far as outdoors, sleeping outdoors, is one of these camouflage head nets that, are basically made for hunting. But when you go to bed at night, flip it around backwards, and it becomes a face-sized mosquito net. So, if you have typically the shelters that I build, usually I can build them so that they do not let mosquitoes in. They're closed up enough that it is pitch black inside. When I pull that little door in and chink the moss around the door, it's pitch black inside. Occasionally, mosquitoes might get in there, and so oftentimes, where kids and I are going out, we've got one of these head nets, and we just turn it around so that the whole eye holes are back here, and it just keeps the mosquitoes off, because there's nothing worse than laying there in the dark and hearing the mosquito and not knowing where it's at, and so you could beat yourself up trying to get it.
What is that called?
It's a camouflage face net.
Face net?
face net.
You can also get, bug net, head bug nets.
Yeah.
I've gotten one.
I had one somewhere. I just had it before we started. Yeah, so bug heads, really good thing, especially if you got mosquitoes.
You can also get those bug nets to surround your hammock.
Yeah,
Zip
big
it in.
ones, mosquito nets,
Yeah,
that are big enough to go around like your whole hammock or your
And then
whole
there are
hammock
some
or whatever.
hammocks with them built in too.
so,
You're making these shelters, what happens if everything is soaking wet outside?
Too bad.
They say it sucks to be a victim.
It does. However, there's different levels of wetness. And I have to deal where I live with way more water than you guys do. So, again, capitalize on the idea that the last place to get wet over where I live is underneath the really big fir trees because they're shedding the water. So that's the place that I'm gonna go first to find my shelter material is under those trees because that's the last place to get wet. So yeah, knowing where to get dry stuff, even though it's been raining for an hour and a half, it's still out there. You just gotta hunt.
First winter in snow, the holes are full.
Yeah, snow is a different issue. So, okay, anything else? Any other questions?
If you were to choose, sorry,
Go ahead.
if you were to choose, just say an all-around knife, what would you recommend?
A folding knife and a straight blade knife.
Two.
Yes, so.
What was the question?
So actually, I've got two on this pack. This is my everyday carry. I've got a Mora, which is a fairly good one that somebody gave to me. So it's in a hard case, really good, high quality knife, fixed blade. And then I've got another one right here, and it's buckled in, so I can't lose it.
And you called it a Mora with an A?
No,
M-O-R-A.
How do you-
It's M-O-R-A and then it's a Swiss company.
Okay, thank you.
Mora. KNIV. Okay. Oh yeah, it says right there too. But I've got, a lock blade knife that you keep in a side pocket. A lot of redundancy, although I did make that note in my page, whatever. In one of these, in your notes, I did make a note that as I was going through my packs, I made these notes like several years ago. And one of the things I noticed when I did those notes is I was really thin on knives. I don't know. It's one of my blind spots, I guess. But I've kind of corrected that, and so I do have some blades on my gear now. So watch how you do things, because what you go heavy on is an indication of your fear. And I've been around a lot of people and watched how they pack gear. One particular person I remember, to pick out one person, is I noticed like they had like a dozen different sources of lights. It's like scared of the dark, aren't you? Some people, it's like they'll overpack the food. And it's like, okay, so you're worried about that. Well, that means get more education. Process, it reveals to you maybe some things going on inside of you that you don't necessarily realize. Typically, we are often blind to our own emotions, our makeup, how we are inside. And that is often expressed and I want to know that for me. I want to know, what are my blind spots? What is it that I filter light through that often reduces my capacity to get the big picture and understand a broader, what's going on in the world. I want to understand where my biases are so that I can correct for that, in any area of life. So, another thing that I do have in here that's kind of fun to mention is in all of my packs, I've got several rope flares. This is like the world's most bionic fire starting match right here. I mean, you compare this with, storm matches. Have you ever seen the storm matches? The head is like half the match. So you can light it in heavy wind and rain and that's the storm match. That's like the Cadillac of matches to get fire going. And this is nothing compared to one of these.
Oh, no.
So, and they're cheap. It's only a few dollars down at the wherever, the auto store. So, get a handful of these, and I've got a couple of these rope flares. And when you start them, they do not go out. Toss them into the creek, and they'll still stay burning at the bottom of the creek for a while. So I've got a number of these poked in my pack. Really handy to have. If you need to start a fire, and once you get these things going, they do not go out. And it only burns for 15 minutes, so it's not like it's going forever. But it's cheap. It's readily available everywhere, and it's just one more, piece of ammunition in your toolkit.
May I ask where you, your first aid kit, as far as the nice pouch that you have to be able to store it on the outside of your bag? The black-
This one.
Yes.
Army Navy Outdoors with an S, I think. .com. ArmyNavyOutdoors.com.
Thank you.
Lots of gear. They have these, I believe those, not 100%, but I think that is called I think that little one,
Individual first aid kit.
what is it?
Individual first aid kit.
Individual first aid kit. I also bought this. This is like a little more grandiose of a hat through that same website. And I should actually include this on the list. And you notice I've got another one here too. But this whole thing, I got on that, and I believe it's called, I've got it on my phone. It was only, that whole thing was $179. And it's called, let's see, I screenshotted this knowing that this would come up. Tactical Trauma First Aid Backpack. It's got all kinds of, not just first aid, but stuff that's a little more serious. And the other thing too, so like, let's see if I can open this up enough. So it's cold packs, bandage, ointment, whatever else. So there's just a, let's see here. So it's got all kinds of gear in it. I think there's one kit bigger than this. It's called the Stomp Hospital, and it's like twice as big as this is, and it's essentially a field hospital. But if you have stuff like this, know how to use it.
Otherwise it's
That's
panicking
the
up.
other really big important thing. It's, you know, there are, I don't know which compartment it is, but there's, how many of you know what these are?
Is that airway?
They're airways.
Okay, yeah.
Do you know what to do with it? If you don't know what to do with it, well then take them out of your kit because you can kill somebody. With, you know, knowing how to insert them into and opening up an airway. So if you have medical,
Watch videos.
you know, then find out if Red Cross or somebody is putting on classes and educate yourself. And that is really profoundly important in the area of disaster preparedness is know how to do stuff, know how to use a defibrillator, know how to do basic first aid CPR, know how to use supplemental oxygen and these other things. So have a working knowledge of first aid, how to deal with people. That was kind of a big wake-up call for us when our kids were little. We had some, maybe you'd say close calls, and we realized, okay, given our lifestyle, we're really needing skill and equipment to deal with first aid. When the kids are around home, I mean, we've got tractors, we've got things that make loud noises, we've got chainsaws. There's a lot of things in our life that is inherently risky. And, you know, I've got a pair of pants at home that have holes all the way down this leg. When the chainsaw came down and the chain stopped as soon as it hit my, hit my pants, it's like, that's scary. Because chainsaw cutting legs is like you cutting cheese. I mean, it's just easy to do, right?
Well, chainsaw doesn't cut, it digs a trench.
Yeah. So
It's
in
not a
that sense,
pretty
it's gonna go
trench
from my ankle to my thigh here, and it's like, okay, we need some stuff to be able to deal with that.
And, yeah, but if you're concerned about cutting your leg with a chainsaw, there are pants now that if
Yeah.
chainsaw hits, it'll just bind up in the thing and won't go to hit your leg.
And we have
For the most part.
I just didn't have them at the time. Okay, so yes, we'll hit this idea that we're talking about right now in our last class. So that thought will come up again. So,
Well, I recommend too, they recommend every 2 years getting training again in this. It's not something that you
yeah,
do once and remember. If you're not using it, you lose it, they say.
for sure. So, you know, it's just a good skill and a duty to your neighbors. You know, it's just a good thing to have. If I don't have the capacity to help in times of need, then by definition I become a drain on the system. It's not hoarding to stock up for winter. It is hoarding when it's a disaster and you run to the store and grab everything you can get in that shopping cart. That's hoarding. You see what I'm saying? And when you plan ahead, you take pressure off of the system that the unprepared are depending on. Yeah.
Do they have classes where you can do survival medical
I
training?
think, I'm
I've never
pretty
heard
sure
of
they
it.
do. If you have a county, if the county has has a search and rescue, they will be teaching those classes.
This
Red
county has a
Cross,
very good one, by the way.
Red Cross, I think, teaches those classes. And if you go online, you could probably do a little bit of searching. And there are different groups that will put those classes on that you can get a little certified card.
A lot of times they're on Saturday, the classes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, you know, look around. It's out there. So, anything else? We have gone right to your... Oh, like I said, this could go on forever.
After those first
Uh,
aid classes, you could also contact your hospital, nursing homes, they go.
Stuff I keep in the car. If I get stuck in my car, having toothbrush and toothpaste, some shampoo, a comb, some lip balm, and some floss, and just, and again, redundancy, I think there's a couple lighters in here, and water purification. If you're stuck away from home, you know, alongside the road, this positive mental attitude thing really gets a boost when you can, for instance, just brush your teeth. That makes it, I mean, it's just a stupid little thing, but it's not. You know, if you can comb your hair and it's like, okay, I'm still human, it's gonna be okay. So just having, you know, some of these little things that you might never think about, you know, along with your little packs of food and toilet paper. It's one thing to have food, right? And plenty of food. But without toilet paper, you do with all that food. You know, it's just one of those conveniences of life that doesn't weigh anything. Just hook it back in some crap whatever somewhere. Yes.
Wipes too. It's nice to have wipes because you can take like
Sponge bath.
a sponge bath,
Yeah.
you know, wipe the sweat or dirt off you.
Keeping yourself
Makes you feel
right.
better.
And that does go a long ways to keep your mental capacity well. Yes.
Water purification, what do you recommend? Is that something you'll do later? Okay.
That comes
Very good, thank you.
next. So we'll talk about that.
As far as medical education, go to your ambulance bars. I know the one in Thompson Falls teaches, you know, immediate first aid. They also teach CPR, certified.
And they do it on other days, cause we've done it.
Okay.
Partly because people that are in charge of that are Adventist over there.
Okay.
And so they're very good about that. And
They
so
do.
the Tack family,
It's
yeah,
nice to have
they've been doing a lot of that lately over there.
the option. Yeah. Yeah. It's a good option. Okay, so. What do we got here?
Take a break.
11 o'clock. Why don't we just take a few minutes